everyone. So the form we're going to be learning today is how to say since something has happened. It has been a certain amount of time. For example, it's been a year since I saw a baseball game. It's actually been like probably 20 years. So this form means time has passed since action verb happens. Now this can be action verb happening or someone doing the action verb. And the way it works is that you take an action verb stem. So if you have 하다, the stem would just be ha. Then you have to change it into the past tense adjective form. Usually that's simple. You take the stem and you attach un if it ends in a consonant or a nian if it ends in a vowel. But there are some verbs that are exceptions, of course. If you have a verb stem that ends with a lir, then you remove it and then you simply attach a nian. So if you have the verb 살다, to live, well, that would become 산지. And then you'll attach a space. This form is not the same as the form that has G like this, but without a space. That is a different form. That can mean whether or if, and I have a full lesson all about all of those meanings you can watch on my channel in the live streams playlist. Next thing you do is you attach an amount of time. So this could be 1 year, 1 day, a week, a month, hours, minutes, anything like that. Then you'll attach the subject marker, which is optional. So that would be E after a consonant or ka after a vowel. Finally, you attach the verb 되다 and you conjugate that into the past tense. So if you have the verb 하다, it would become 한지. 먹다, to eat, will become 먹은. 지, 팔다, to sell, will become 판지. Like that. Okay, one more thing though. One more thing. This G here means time from when some action happens until now. So the time from when this action verb happens until now is what it means, literally. So let's look at this form in a literal sense. The time since this action verb happened, past tense. Past tense 되다. It was, let's just say 3 hours. So it was 3 hours since this action happened. One more thing I should say. The verb here, 되다, it is the most commonly used verb that you'll see with this form, but there are a few other verbs that you'll see. 넘다 means to be more than. So if you want to say, it's been more than a year since I ate a marker. Note that you will still use it in the past tense, but there are two more that you might see. 지나다 just means to pass. So this would be like saying 3 years has passed since I broke my desk. There's one more also. 흐르다 normally means to flow, like a river flows. You can also say 시간이 흐르다, like time flows, literally, but it means goes by. So you can say 2 years has gone by since I last saw her. You'll see it sometimes. So these are the 4 most common verbs that you want to know for this form. Let's do our first sentence. 한국어를 공부하기 시작한 지 17년이 됐어요. So I 한국어, Korean, 공부하다, study. 공부하기 시작하다, literally to start studying. So 시작한 지, since the time that I started studying Korean, 17년, 17 years. 됐어요. So it has been 17 years since I started studying Korean. So you could translate that as, it's been 17 years since I started studying Korean, or you could even just translate it as, I started studying Korean 17 years ago. Both of those are fine. So it's been 17 years since I started studying Korean. 제가 한국어를 공부하기 시작한 지 17년이 됐어요. 우리가 만난 지 1년이 됐어요. So we, 만나다, to meet. So since the time of us meeting, it has been 1 year. 우리가 만난 지 1년이 됐어요. It's been 1 year since we've met. 한국에 온 지 얼마나 됐어요? 한국, Korea, 오다, to come, so to come here. Since you've come here to Korea, 얼마나 is the time word that you're going to use when you're asking questions. And it means how long, as in how long has it been? 얼마나, and then you would ask it as a question. 얼마나 됐어요? How long has it been? 한국에 온 지 얼마나 됐어요? So literally, how long has it been since you came here to Korea? This is how Koreans will ask you, how long have you been in Korea? 한국에 온 지 얼마나 됐어요? How long have you been here? 한국말 배운 지 한국말, Korean, 배우다, to learn. So since the time when you learned Korean, 얼마나 됐어요? How long has it been since you've learned Korean? So how long have you been learning Korean? 한국말 배운 지 얼마나 됐어요? So how long have you been learning Korean? 결혼한 지 10년 넘었어요. 결혼하다, to get married. 지, so the time since we got married, 10년, 10 years, 넘었어요. It's over 10 years. So it's been over 10 years since we've gotten married. We've been married for over 10 years. 결혼한 지 10년 넘었어요. 새 옷을 산 지 오래됐어요. First of all, 새 옷, literally, 새 is an adjective, pure Korean adjective, means new, new clothes. So 새 옷을 산 지, so since I bought new clothes. 오래되다. There's not even a space here. This is one word. 오래되다. And that literally means to be a long time. And again, this will also be conjugated in the past tense. So it's been a long time since I bought any new clothes. 새 옷을 산 지 오래됐어요. So it has been a long time since I bought new clothes. Or you could say I haven't bought any new clothes in a long time. So here we have 안 됐어요. So it hasn't been. And that's perfectly fine too, just the negative. You can use 안 with any of the other verbs too. 한국에 오다, so to come to Korea. So since I've come to Korea, 2년, 2 years. 도, here it's even. So when you're using a negative verb, you can use 도 to mean not even. So it hasn't even been 2 years since I've come here to Korea. 한국에 온 지 2년도 안 됐어요. So it hasn't even been 2 years since I've come here to Korea. Okay, we're not done though. We're not done. We are not finished. Now let's go on to some advanced notes. Feel free to write these down, take note, but don't stress about learning them. You can learn them later. This is for people who already know how to use this form and want to get a little more out of it. In English, if you make the sentence, it's been 2 years since I ate pizza. We understand that it means you had pizza 2 years ago and you haven't had pizza again in the meantime, right? Sure. So we know that in that sentence, since means you did something and you're no longer doing it now. You haven't eaten pizza in 2 years. It's been 2 years since you ate pizza. 피자를 먹은 지 2년이 됐어요. It's been 2 years since I've eaten pizza. Korean's the same. 한국어 배운 지 2년이 됐어요. It's been 2 years since I learned Korean. Does that mean you're not learning it anymore? Or does it mean you still are and it's been 2 years since you started? Probably means, since you're saying it in Korean, it probably means that you're still studying it, right? It's a bit vague sometimes, and it's the same thing in Korean. Some things, though, are assumed one way or the other, depending on the verb. It's been 2 years since we got married. Are you still married? Yes, you are. Yeah, it's been 2 years since I got married. It could mean, though, it could mean, right? You got married 2 years ago, and you're not married now, right? It could mean that. But it probably doesn't. Usually, this form is used for something that happened and is still happening. So just keep that in mind. Most of the time when this form is used, it will be assumed that whatever you did is still happening or still going on. For example, like studying Korean, coming to Korea, getting married, stuff like that. If it can be assumed to be still happening, that's what they will think you mean. Usually this form is not used to express something that you're not doing anymore, or that's no longer happening. But if you want to be clear that something is not happening anymore, then you make a different sentence. You simply say, I have not done that for this amount of time. For example, if you say this sentence, 만난 지 1년이 됐어요. It's been a year since we met. If the context works, they're going to understand it as meaning, we met a year ago, we still meet now. So we've known each other for a year. It's been a year since we've first met. But if you don't mean that, you mean to say, I haven't met them in a year. It's been a year since I met them. I haven't seen them in a year. Then you make a different sentence. You say, the key word here is 동안. 동안 means for a period of time. 1년 동안 안 만났어요. Literally, I didn't meet them for a period of a year. So we didn't meet for 1 year. That's how you say it's been a year since I met them and I haven't met them since. So just say it directly. If you want it to be clear, no, this is not going on anymore. There's one more thing you can do. You can still use the 지 form. You can just use a negative action verb stem before the 지 form. Nothing else has to change. So if you're using the verb 하다, normally you'd get 한 지. Well, how do you get a negative version of that? 안 한지. So let me give you an example. 안 만난 지 1년이 됐어요. So now you have literally this sentence. The time since we haven't met has now been a year. So now you're saying it's been a year, but not the time since we've met, but the time since we haven't met. Since not meeting them, it's been a year. 안 만난 지 1년이 됐어요. So yeah, that's the whole lesson, and I will see you again next time. 그럼 다음에 또 봐.